Thank you very much. It's really a great pleasure to be invited by Right Livelihood College of ZEF Center, Bonn University. As you've heard, my name is David Amudavi. I am from Kenya. I am the Executive Director of Biovision Africa Trust. Regarding my background, I'm an extension educationist as well as a socioeconomist. Basically working in the area of agricultural education and extension and looking at issues of rural development and also looking at issues of how to promote sustainable agriculture and food systems in Africa. And my organization is very much in line with this area of focus, and I'm grateful to have been working for it for the last 12 years. Biovision Africa Trust was founded by one of the laureates for the very prestigious Alternative Nobel Prize Award, Dr. Hans Herren. He founded Biovision Africa Trust in 2009 after he had already founded another important organization in the area of ecological development, that's Biovision Foundation of Switzerland. And Biovision Africa Trust is playing a very central role in coordinating important initiatives on the African continent. And if I may mention two of them, one is ecological organic agriculture, which is supported by the African Union. And it's an initiative that helps to implement a very important decision by the African heads of states and government on promoting ecological organic agriculture on the continent. And my organization has been working with various partners, including the Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture of the African Union Commission, to promote this initiative. And we are very grateful to some important development partners that have been part of this initiative. And if I may single out, the Swiss government through the Swiss Development Corporation, as well as the Swedish Society for Nature Conservation, have been very instrumental to the development of this initiative. And working on aspirations that deal with the issues of agriculture and food systems that ZEF Center, through its Right Livelihood College, is looking at. The other important initiative that my organization is taking a very important lead is the Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture for Africa, and in particular, looking at coordinating the Knowledge Hub for Eastern Africa. This is a very important initiative that leverages on the Ecological Organic Agriculture Initiative, and it is supported by the German government, and we are very grateful for supporting this initiative in all the 5 political regions of Africa. And as such, we now have 5 knowledge hubs, which we consider to be important avenues through which we can get knowledge from research and even from practice being scaled up into use within our continent. So over time, and I think it's slightly over almost 6 to 7 years, we've been working very closely with the ZEF and RLC in the area of collaborative research work. We have several students who come from Africa to this university and the center, and some of the work that they do is quite relevant to our African agriculture. And I have been one of the professionals that have also had a contribution towards identifying some of the research areas on which students could do their work. Our organization has also been supporting to provide field experience for some of our students who have come to do their fieldwork in Kenya. And this has actually made such kind of research and study quite relevant to the context of our agriculture and food systems. And for the Some of the work that has been done by students from especially East Africa, those who are about to do their fieldwork or those who are writing their thesis, we've collaborated with the Right Livelihood College to have students come to Nairobi to host workshops where they exchange, share, and support each other. And my organization has been quite supportive of this collaboration. So in short, I would say our collaboration has been very instrumental in looking at some of the research that has practical relevance to addressing some of the problems that face our agriculture, and more so looking at how we can get sustainable solutions to the problems of food insecurity and even to the problems of incomes to the families, because we believe agriculture needs to be a productive enterprise. Besides also being done in a manner that makes sure that we safeguard our environment as an important life support system. I would wish organic agriculture was to become a way of life. I have been working on this area since I started working with the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, ICIPE, which hosts the organization that I work for, that's Biovision Africa Trust. And looking at the field of agriculture, it shows quite an important potential towards safe and nutritious food, which is important not only just for consumption, but also for human health. And for us, we feel it's important to increase production of organic produce for own local consumption. Unfortunately, and for a long time, people have tended to look at organic agriculture, and especially which is for export, to be considered as a niche area only for the European or the international global markets. But we'd want to have everyone appreciate and consume organic foods. So another important opportunity we see and a role for which our organizations can play is to demonstrate that organic agriculture could be an important economic base for the farmers. They need to produce what they can consume, but also produce what they can get to the markets, generate income to support other livelihood needs. Organic agriculture is also important, and we feel we have a duty to support it in the sense that it is one of those systems that have shown to be quite resilient to some of the shocks that do happen quite frequently. If we look at how climate change is affecting agriculture, we find quite reasonable level of resilience with organic systems compared to conventional systems. And how does that happen? A bit briefly, organic agriculture systems tend to incorporate, by way of the inputs that are used, more carbon into the soils. So the organic systems therefore are able to sequestrate more carbon into the soils through the soil organic matter. And that helps to improve the soil health, and it means in very adverse conditions, organic systems are more likely to support a better and sustained production than conventional systems. And even studies are beginning to show that more of the organic systems they may not produce very highly compared to the conventional, but from the perspective of diversity of production, because one of the important attributes of organic agriculture is in diversification of what you can produce on the farm. And when you have diversified production, also addressing elements of nutrition and health, and addressing the elements of access and availability, What that means is that you help to smoothen consumption of food by the farm households, rural communities, and everyone else. So in terms of, therefore, looking at the question of nutrition and health, looking at the question of availability and access, organic production has the potential to support this. And this is the whole question of ensuring that populations become food secure. We've seen, even from statistics, for example, on the African continent, food security has still remained a major issue. And this is in spite of the billions of dollars that have actually gone into research and development. Just early this year, the African Comprehensive Agriculture Development Program released its findings to show how different countries are responding to the outcome of how to reduce hunger by 2025. And we see quite a lot of countries still lagging behind in this obligation. And as I've mentioned, this is in spite of the huge investments that have already gone into research and development around conventional and industrial agriculture. So for me, I feel having to do more in the organics, invest a little bit more in the areas that are viable and show potential in terms of research, and then in terms of scale up, would be an alternative way to complement the efforts of addressing the question of food and nutrition security. So organic agriculture, therefore, plays an important role in this. And in terms of diversification, and in terms of increased production, and in terms of even supporting in rural areas, cottage industries around the organic sector, this could be another important way of generating employment to farm families, employment to youth, and employment to many people as well. So potentially, therefore, organic agriculture becomes an important area of focus, not only addressing the question of food security, but also providing avenues for employment for the youth that are coming out of our education and training institutions, for the women and men in the rural areas, and to help stop everyone thinking that it's only in urban areas that you can get employment. And this is particularly important for most of our African countries, where our economies largely depend on agriculture. I know from the experience I've had from my training around the world. I've trained in Australia, I've trained in America, and of course, Kenya being my first base of training. I usually find it quite interesting that a lot of young people who study, and especially in the fields of agriculture, tend probably to feel hesitant to go back to Africa. And of course, they contribute to brain circulation. But I would wish we had more of them come back to the continent and contribute to knowledge generation, development, and uplifting the lives of people on the continent. I feel the African young people have a role to play in this, and Africa cannot develop by itself unless also its young people who go out for good education can come back home and contribute to the development of their countries. Now, specifically when it comes to organic agriculture, the question of how to make it attractive to the youth and attractive to the young scholars and researchers who pursue their various professional qualifications in some of the renowned academic and training institutions around the world, it will be good for them to come back. And for me, I feel if we make organic agriculture, and if you look at organic agriculture, right from the concept of value chain, from production, to processing, packaging, marketing, and trade, that is a whole continuum that can absorb the young people in many ways. First, those who can come back can support research work that is important in developing more economic and benefit awarding value chains within agricultural systems. We can also have more coming in who could be involved in the other aspects of the value chain, be it in the industry for processing or adding value, or be it in the sector for economics and trade. There are huge opportunities where the young people can be involved in. And of course, another way to make this attractive is to look at how the role of technology and ICT, and I see this happening quite a lot in some of our own countries. Youth are getting excited if they can see how to address some of the challenges facing agriculture, and therefore by extension, which could be facing organic agriculture, to be resolved by the use of advanced information and communication and technology. And for me, I feel this can actually provide space for young people to be involved. And another thing that I feel is important, and which could perhaps be supported by policy and governments, is to see how the organic industry could develop, so that we don't look at organic agriculture just from the production angle alone, but looking at what associated industries on whatever level or scale, depending on the capability of the countries, that we can actually set up to provide jobs, to provide employment for young people. For me, having this close nexus between production and development of the organic sector and industry, which is related to support the sector, it's absolutely important. And also how organic agriculture, which to me is quite multifunctional, how it can relate to other sectors within the environment, other sectors in land use planning, other sectors on how we can better utilize our landscapes. This could be interesting areas that can actually attract the young scholars, the young researchers that happen to get the privilege and the opportunity to train in very good institutions, to come back to their home countries and make a contribution. But of course, I don't mean to have every young person who has gone out to come. No, we still want also young people from the African continent to feel they're part of the global community. So we still expect some to continue working and staying outside. But we have some of the best brains that could actually go back and have a transformation of our agriculture in the direction we feel that organic agriculture can actually make a difference in the lives of people, in the economies of our countries, and also just changing the whole question of what kind of research and development endeavors should we be focusing on from more sustainable systems. We all know very recently we had the United Nations Food System Summit, and from this summit, quite important outcomes came up. And they have also huge implications on where should countries, whether in the south or north, focus more in terms of having more sustainable food systems. And this, to me, I feel is an important area where young people that are really getting good education, good training, can actually play a role. And ZEF with the RLC can make a contribution to this, working very closely with organizations like Biovision Africa Trust and others on the continent. And of course, working with higher level institutions that we do have in our continent. Yes, that's a very important question. The crisis that is happening in the global north, and especially the Russia-Ukraine war, is certainly affecting our work in many fundamental ways, as it affects other organizations and endeavors as well. One area that this is affecting our work is in reduced funding and support to the work that we do. We do our work with some partners, and I believe that others potentially who might be willing to support the work we do in terms of research, in terms of development, but we could actually have this getting limited because of a greater focus on how to address some of the effects and impacts of what is happening in the North. So this has a bearing on the kind of work that we do. I also feel what might be happening in the North is having an impact on what we do. And the question is, how do we then ensure that we can use or we can promote our agriculture in a manner that increases productivity and ensures that our countries are food secure, and then our economies continue to thrive, given that most of the African economies are based on agriculture. Now, some of the crises that are happening in the global North, as we all know today, are affecting the question of how do we get fertilizers to the farmers. For those who still believe that, of course, we know fertilizers have a role to play. But also the question of which types of fertilizers do you really want to promote, and how do we get this made available? Now, whereas a greater focus is on the production of fossil-based fertilizers or chemical-based fertilizers, the crisis is affecting the opportunity to invest more in bio-based inputs, biofertilizers, biopesticides, and for us, these are very important areas that really need more investments in terms of research, in terms of development, and this is how we can actually then ensure that we have more sustainable agriculture and food systems. For a while, the potential for bio-based inputs, and especially bio-based fertilizers and pesticides, it has been there, but it just hasn't picked up because of limited funding to this. And I see when crises happen in the North, which happen to support both types of production of inputs, then our work is affected in the sense that we'd like to see more support going into production of environmentally based inputs, and especially bio-based fertilizers and biopesticides. So I see some of these crises in the North affecting that focus and support towards bio-based inputs. Thank you very much. I would wish to say more, but when an opportunity comes again, I'll be more than happy to share. Thank you very much.